It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
Off and running. Welcome in another edition of Musso at the Box, presented by Got-Lit Light Installers. Glad to have you along for the ride. Smash the like button if you have not already. Please get subscribed up to the YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast app. Just search Musso at the Box. Hit subscribe, share. That is always greatly appreciated as well. Let's go ahead and talk about not only today's show, but the week ahead, y'all. This is a massive week for LSU baseball. They'll welcome in Tennessee for a top 10 matchup, two teams with identical records in the SEC, two teams with records separated by just one game in the win column overall on the season. And we talked about it in our recap of the Alabama series. LSU's postseason seeding, where they're playing, how long they're playing at home, potentially national seed, all of that is to be decided over the next 3 weeks with your series against Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. So throughout the week, we will absolutely broaden our focus, not just in that matchup, but in the postseason implications that start with the LSU and Tennessee series this weekend at the box. But before we can even get there, we have to look at the Northwestern State Demons, which we will do on this show as they come into the box on Tuesday night. But before we even get to that, we're going to go back to the LSU offense because we talked plenty about it in our recap episode of the Alabama series. 3 guys I gave you who are struggling right now that LSU needs to turn the corner. I have gone more deep dive in the last 24 hours or so on LSU's offense, their performance the last 2 weeks, how that compares to their performance the first 4 weeks of SEC play. Those 3 guys individually that we talked about in the recap, their performance over the last 2 weeks, how that kind of compares to some of their performances the first 4 weeks, just overall, so we can kind of see, okay, what is it exactly that is hampering LSU's offense as a whole, and how they can kind of maybe go about getting back on track quicker, because your time is running thin there. And it's interesting we focus so much on LSU's offense right now because, you know, a lot of people would point to the pitching staff and be like, yeah, they're inconsistent. And you know what? They do still have some inconsistencies. But what's undeniable is the last 2 weeks they have made strides. Where it's easy to get concerned about LSU's pitching staff right now is Game 3 starter. And we talked about that in the recap. And we'll talk about that plenty as the week goes on. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about that here today as well. More when we get into the preview of Northwestern State, because I think what LSU does in that game impacts potentially what you see in the number 3 spot this weekend against Tennessee. So there's a lot to focus on. But when you look at the last 2 weeks in SEC play, it has been the LSU offense that has been the crux of the issue for the Tigers. Your pitching staff, even with some of their inconsistencies, has kept you in the ball game and has even won you ball games in the process. So the offense, again, is where we really, really hone in on here on today's show. So without really any further ado, let's start there. LSU offensively, let's just compare it. The first 4 weeks of SEC play to the last 2. In the last 2 SEC weekends, so that's at Auburn and at home against Alabama. And for what it's worth, LSU is 2-4 in those games, in those last 6. You got swept at Auburn, you took 2 of 3 from Bama. Your offense is averaging 4.5 runs per game. You have hit 172 with runners in scoring position. You have walked 25 times and struck out 54. LSU in 6 games has struck out 54 times to just the 25 walks. And those numbers will be further, highlighted, underscored when we look at the 3 guys in particular. And those 3 guys who I've threw out in the recap episode that really need to get going for LSU are Milam, Jones, and Hernandez. But when you look at the 54 strikeouts to 25 walks, why that is so concerning? Well, for one, it's just not good. But LSU on the season has drawn the second or third most walks in conference play. I'll check that number for you here just so I know I have it, 100% accurate. But I know for sure they've struck out the third least amount of times in conference play. And even with those 54, they still sit there in that spot. But, man, when you look at that and you go, okay, 24, so LSU walks on the year, they've drawn 231, which is the third most. So you've drawn the third most walk, you've struck out the third least amount of times. That is not the case over the last 6 games in league play. If we were to take it and just each team, their last 6 games, LSU's not ranking top 5 in both of those. And again, why it's concerning is because when you look at the overall sample size and you see that, you can look here and go, okay, they're way out of character. They're not totally locked in. They're expanding the zone. And the problem with the expansion of the zone for LSU is it's not just leading to more strikeouts. They're expanding the zone and fouling the ball off and getting pitchers back into counts that way that maybe lead to you getting out, whether that's a strikeout or not. LSU, one of their biggest strengths this year was the strike zone discipline. That's what led to their success with runners in scoring position early in the year. That's what led to their success scoring with 2 outs, hitting with 2 strikes. And right now, you're just not seeing that. And that is concerning to me because what you are about to see from a pitching staff coming in Tennessee is elite. When you look at Liam Doyle and Marcus Williams as a 1-2, Marcus Phillips as a 1-2. You look at guys like Nate Snead in the bullpen for Tennessee. That's a staff that's right up there with you when it comes to strikeout numbers in this league. And that is a very concerning trend for me right now with LSU's offense over the last 2 weekends. Now, you compare that to the first 4, and you look at a team that was hitting .333 with runners in scoring position over the first 4 weekends of conference play. And you can talk about, the schedule was lighter and whatnot. That .333 includes a trip to Texas, who's the number 1 team in the country right now and has lost 2 SEC games. That also includes a trip to a then top 10 Oklahoma, who's still a top 15 team right now in the country. Those numbers factor into you hitting .333 with runners in scoring position almost the first half of conference play. So this team's very capable. But again, what were you doing there? You weren't striking out as much. You were drawing walks. You were manufacturing runs much better. All of those things that LSU isn't doing right now. The numbers bear it out. I'm sorry. I know these are a lot of numbers. It doesn't always play well just in like audio medium and even in the video aspect. I don't have graphics on the screen for it. Please try to bear with me because we got more numbers coming. But you look at the first 4 weeks, .333 with runners in scoring position. The last 2, .172. That and your strikeout numbers are the biggest contrasts that you'll see. When you get into the individuals struggling, let's start with Jared Jones. Because I also, in this conversation right now, I want to dispel a rumor or a narrative about Jared Jones that he's been bad in SEC play because it's wrong. It is flat out inaccurate. Jared Jones has been bad the last 2 weekends. He's had 2 bad weekends in a row. He's slumping. It happens. You know what Jared Jones' average was in conference-only games, in only conference play the first 4 weeks of the season? 296. He was 16 for 54. If that's bad to anybody, I can't help you. And you might say, he beat up on Missouri and Mississippi State. No. His best series was against Texas. Again, the team who's number 1 in the country right now and has lost 2 games in conference play. Jared Jones hit 400 that weekend. He was hitting 296 through the first 4 weeks of SEC play. His last 2 weeks, he's hitting 125. 3 walks, 12 punch-outs. You see how that tracks with what you're doing overall as a team? And why that's super concerning for Jones is because what we lauded him so much for early in the year was the strikeout number coming down and the walk number going up. Jared Jones, for the first, almost 2/3 of this season, had more walks than strikeouts on the year. So while that shows the concerning angle of his slump, it also should show you that he can break out of this. And when he does, it's going to be very, very good for LSU. The problem is there needs to be a sense of urgency right now because of the stretch you're about to enter. Luis Hernandez. Luis Hernandez, the last 2 weekends, is 0 for 12 with 7 Ks. Before the Auburn series, heading into the Auburn series, Luis Hernandez was hitting 340 in SEC play. He doesn't have a hit in his last 12 at-bats. And he's punched out 7 times. That's concerning. And why that's concerning to me is because when you look at that 340 for Hernandez through the first 4 weeks, it was big moments. Tying home run against Missouri. All the doubles he hit in that Oklahoma series to help ignite rallies on days where the conditions were just dreadful for offense. The go-ahead home run against Texas, the game-winning home run against Mississippi State. It was big, impactful moments. At the bottom of your order. 340. Doesn't have a hit in his last 6 games in the SEC. 0 for his last 12, 7 Ks. Milam. Stephen Milam is 3 for his last 23 over the course of the last 6 games. It's 130. He doesn't really have the K numbers or anything like that. And for what it's worth, Milam is the one that I think is closest to breaking out because he has just scalded the baseball. Like 2 of the 3 hits that Milam has left the yard. 2 of the 3 are home runs. To show you how hard and how solid contact he is making, it's just either going over the fence or it's not really falling in. So he has to get back to staying within himself at the plate with what he's doing, and eventually it falls in for you again. But that's a guy that you so desperately need because he is driving in the runs. So I wanted to kind of go deep dive to show you where they were to where they are, some causes of that, both as a team as a whole, but also with those 3 individual guys that we threw out in the recap as who I think are most important to getting this offense back to where it was in those first 4 weeks. Because those were guys who were just constantly impacting you. Like you remember in the first 4 weeks of conference play, I was having conversations here saying, look, Stephen Milam's leading you in RBI in conference play right now. Let's get him in the cleanup spot. See what that can do. And then at the risk of just being redundant, I did go deep dive into Jake Brown as well because I want him in the lineup every day. And I think it's absurd that he's not. Jake Brown has played in 4 of your last 6 SEC games. He's hitting 400 and has drove in 5 runs. Like I just kind of want to let that breathe a little bit. You're hitting 172 with runners in scoring position the last 6 games. He's played in 4 of them, and the 4 that he has, he's driven in 5 runs. Homer, triple. He's just got to be in there every day. And I know he won't be. Like, I know Jay's going to continue his platooning and whatnot. And I'm not saying that you can't continue to platoon. What I'm saying is Jake Brown doesn't need to be part of the platoon. He needs to be in there every day. And there's multiple ways you can get that accomplished. You could start him in right field and then DH Ethan Fry. Man, look, if you got a lefty on the mound, you don't want to DH Fry that day, you could DH Brown and start Pearson in right field, or flip-flop those, DH Pearson and start Brown in right field. There are many ways to do it. But what you're seeing right now is Ethan Fry in the lineup every day with a platoon of Pearson and Brown, and that needs to be flipped. It needs to be Jake Brown in the lineup every day and platoon Pearson and Fry. Because what you're doing right now by keeping a guy who's hitting 400 over when you're struggling as much as you are, and he's hitting 400 in that stretch with 5 RBI, what you're doing by not having him in the lineup, you're biting your nose to spite your face, and I do not understand it. I do not understand it. And don't give me the righty-lefty stuff because I've told y'all plenty. I have a tolerance for that, but I don't buy into it as much as some coaches and baseball people do. Good hitters hit. Jake Brown's a good hitter. Jake Brown's a great hitter. And he has taken such a jump this season. Jake Brown, a year ago in conference play. Sorry, I didn't write this down, so I have to look it up again. But just to show you the deep dive that we did here. Jake Brown a year ago in conference play hit 143. Jake Brown this season in SEC play is hitting 302 with 14 driven in. The 14 driven in is third on your team in SEC ball. Behind Curiel, Jones, and Milam. Guy has raised his average almost 200 points. Well over 150, around 150 points. He's a good hitter. He's a great hitter. Put him in there every day. I don't care if the pitcher's throwing with his foot. Because I like what you're doing. You're biting your nose to spite your face. And I don't understand. But through all the struggles, there's signs that it will improve. Just looking at what these guys have done earlier in the year. Albeit against the lighter part of your schedule, using air quotes if you're not watching, the lighter part of your schedule. But also against some pretty darn good teams too. This weekend would be a fine time for LSU to get back to what they did the first half of the schedule. But in order to do that, first and foremost, they got to stop striking out. And that was not any more evident than it was this past weekend against Bama, where you had runners at third and you go strike out, right? With less than 2 outs. Just put the ball in play. And that's where, that's where the runner in scoring position statistic can get, the average of runners in scoring position can get, overblown. Because there are ways to score runs without the benefit of a hit that LSU's been very good at this season. Squeeze bunts, sack flies, RBI groundouts, things of that nature. But you're not doing that. And that's where the strikeout becomes extremely concerning here. Because you're punching out with less than 2 outs and a runner at third base back-to-back times. And that's just unacceptable. And that's not who this LSU team has been, and that's not who this LSU team is. But the longer this trend continues, the more you have to second-guess the second part of that statement. We'll see. But for all the evidence of them struggling, there's plenty of evidence of them being really good at times this season, too. They just have to get back to that. And unfortunately, it's going to have to come against the toughest part of your schedule. All right. Gotlit Light Installers, gotlitlights.com. Have you gone yet? Have you gone to gotlitlights.com yet to get your quote? I know some of y'all need lights. I know you do. Springtime is here. This is the time you get out in your yard and you do your flower beds. You know what adds more than a further pop? Some permanent outdoor landscape lighting to really illuminate the front of your home or your business. You go to Gotlit Lights for that. They're the best. Derek and his team, they handle everything. All you do is say, hey, this is what I want. This is my vision. And then they bring that to light. And then they help maintain, replace, storage, tear down, installation. Anything that you need, Gotlit Light Installers handles it for you when it comes to exterior illumination of your home. Your backyard pool area, same deal. permanent outdoor landscape lighting. And then, of course, the Christmas lights come the winter. And all throughout the year, your temporary outdoor lighting for your private events, wedding reception, anniversary party, graduation parties. Again, I know some of you have grads in your family. You're going to be throwing them a party and you need some lights. Got Lit Light Installers has you covered. Trust me. Go work with Derek and his team. See what I'm talking about. You won't regret it. Tell him you heard it right here on Musso at the Box. Okay. LSU and Northwestern State. Tuesday night at the Box. Northwestern State, the Demons out of the Southland, they come in 24-17. This is a pretty capable club. They're coming off of a great series win against Lamar this past weekend in Natchitoches. And Lamar was leading the Southland Conference heading into this past weekend. They're 32-10. That's a really, really good series win for Northwestern State. So the Demons will come in and they will compete plenty with the Tigers. Like if you're not on your game, if you're just going through the motions, you're going to find yourself in a dogfight with this club. Overall on the year, you look at them hitting 268 as a team, just 42 home runs. But what they do very well, they like to run 83 steal attempts. 69 of those have been successful. It's a sub-5 ERA as a club at 4.77. They've punched out 308 and 350 innings, and the opponent's hitting just 258. That's really what you've seen with these Southland teams coming into the box this year. The pitching numbers have been so much better than they have been in the past. So, again, you'll get a pretty good test if you're LSU struggling offensively the way that you are. But first and foremost, you want to see that carry over into the SEC. It didn't really do that after you beat McNeese carrying over into Alabama. So that's going to be something to watch this entire week, starting Tuesday night. Couple of individuals. Rocco Gump, infielder, leads the Demons offensively with a 341 average. He has also driven in 37. Daniel Burroway is the home run leader with 11, and he is second on the club with 35 RBI. What do we want to see from LSU in this game? Well, a lot of what we talked about there in the first half of the show is improving, not striking out, moving the baseball better when you have an opportunity to move runners or score a runner from third with less than 2 outs, and really elevating your game. I'm curious to see what the lineup looks like because you've seen some shuffling all throughout the lineup, but especially at the top the last few games. You've seen Dickinson lead off twice. You've seen Curiel hit the 2-hole and lead off. You've seen Jones hit 2-hole and hit 3-hole. You've seen a plethora of different guys in the cleanup spot, whether that be Ethan Fry or Stephen Milam. Danny Dickinson even hit cleanup one game. So I want to see how that structure of the lineup continues to evolve. If they can settle on something that gets them more back to where they were the first, 2/3 of this year. And then on the mound is where I'm really interested because I think it impacts what you do Sunday in a starting role. Chase Shores right now for you is just not a contributing. He's not a guy you can really count on the weekend right now. I mean, it was really disappointing after he took the 2 steps forward against Mississippi State and Mississippi State and Oklahoma to see him the last 2 weekends against Auburn and Alabama really take steps backwards because it looked like you were getting there. Remember, we were asking for signs. So what do you do in that third starter spot? And I have some overarching thoughts there that we can get into later in the week. But what I want to see is if we can glean anything from LSU's plan Tuesday that could lend itself to, okay, maybe what they do in that spot on Sunday. Because right now, let me be clear. Right now, Chase Shores is just not, you're not able to count on him on the weekend to really go out there and be consistent. And he'll have his moments. He'll throw up a 0 here and there, right? but there's going to be some damage that comes along with that. You just can't count on him right now, emphasis on the right now, to be a consistent contributor. So, if you don't see Jaden Newt pitch Tuesday night, could that mean he might start? If you don't see Connor Ware pitch, could he be back in line to start that game again on Saturday? What I think is going to happen is I think you'll see William Schmidt get the ball and start against Northwestern State. I know he pitched obviously last Tuesday and then again then again on Saturday, but in that game on Saturday, William Schmidt only threw 19 pitches, and he threw 61, I believe, in the midweek. But now, I mean, you've had Sunday, Monday. He could go out there, start for you, and go, give you a couple, 2-3 innings, and then you could turn it over to, whomever might be next. I'm really excited to see Cooper Williams get on the mound Tuesday night, hopefully, and see if he can build off of what he did. Same potentially for DJ Primo. Both those guys were very good for you in that third game against Alabama. So I want to see more of them. And of course, Maverick Rizzi as well. You are seeing the pitching staff evolve, but you're in doing that. Evolve means a couple different things, right? It means you're seeing changes like you did with the Game 3 start, but you're also seeing guys take steps forward, like potentially a Cooper Williams, like a Jacob Myers. Jacob Myers pitched twice for LSU over the weekend. It was only 2/3 of an inning total, but it was scoreless. And there was a strikeout in there. And I mean, you're seeing him throw more strikes consistently. So that's a step in the right direction. I thought Connor Ware was really good, actually, his first one trip through that lineup. And I'd like to see more there. So how they structure this against Northwestern State lends itself to what it might look like later in the weekend. And the other guy that just absolutely positively has to get on the mound for LSU Tuesday is Connor Benj. He hasn't pitched since Thursday, and that did not go well. And he needs to get back out there and get some confidence back. Because, man, it looked like he was finally starting to build some consistency, and then Thursday night happened. That's a guy that has to be a big part of this for LSU because he's a veteran arm with great stuff and has pitched a lot of innings. You need him to find consistency. But that's where the depth of this staff has also really come into play because you've been able to piece it together. When one guy hasn't had his stuff, when it's been his night to be inconsistent, another guy has normally stepped up and pitched really well. And that goes past just Evans and Cowan. Look at a guy like Maverick Rizzi, right? He's factored into that. Cooper Williams. Chase Shores didn't have his best stuff. Cooper Williams goes out there and throws a shutout inning for you, right? You've been able to steal outs, around there. So, and that's how LSU staff's really been able to keep them in the game. So just the further evolution of the staff come Tuesday night and how that might impact what they do this weekend, specifically in that third Sunday starter role. All right, y'all, that's going to wrap it up here for today's edition of Musso at the Box. Please smash the like button before you get out of here, and please subscribe if you have not already, and share. All of that is greatly appreciated. Be here next time for more. It's Musso at the Box, presented by Gauntlet Light Installers.